In 1964 and 2005, we had two big floods in our area. And in 1964, we had one neighbor upstream and we had another neighbor downstream, and the guy upstream said, well, you haven't seen high water yet. He says, when it gets up to a certain log in somebody's barn, that's high water. And the guy downstream says, oh, I seen your bridge float by. We had a log bridge at that time. So in 1964, the guy upstream lost his barn, his garage, his truck, his tractor. And the guy downstream missed the bridge when it went by. But after that, we didn't hear anything more about high water and being the newbies in the area, even though we'd been there for a few years at that point. In 2005 was the granddaddy of all floods that hit the whole area. All of the eastern slopes of Alberta got it. We lost our bridges. The creek in front of our house basically, well, it was right from hill to hill instead of riverbank to riverbank, and it washed out the yard, and it was right underneath one of our buildings, and we had to backfill all of that, and we had a major cleanup on that. It pretty much devastated us for that year. It happened in June, and we were supposed to start camp in July, and we were able to get a couple of weeks at the end of August that we got things closer together. And because of that, the school board, we used to get school bands coming in, and the school board decided that they couldn't come in because things weren't safe enough yet to get into there. And so after 25 years of having school bands and school groups coming out, the school board come in with a whole bunch of paperwork saying that, we were liable for this and that and everything else, and they really weren't liable for anything. And so I told them goodbye, and that was it. After 25 years, we dropped the schools. Over the years, we weren't threatened with any fires up until last year, and we had a fire within half a mile of us. And I was in Calgary at the time, and my son called and said, better get home, there's a fire. And I says, where? And he says, between us and Benners, which is our neighbor to the south. And he says, you better come in through Water Valley, and because he says, I think the road's closed. So we come in that way, and of course, there's a guy banning the road, and he won't give us any information. And finally, later on that afternoon, I went up and I said, is there anything new on this fire? Is it, what's happening? And he wouldn't tell me anything. And I says, well, who's in charge down there? And he told me who was in charge and says, I'm going to talk to him. And he said, you can't do that. And I says, just watch. And I just drove on by him and down. And when I talked to the fire chief down there, he says, that guy should never have stopped me. He says, I live here. He says, I should have been able to have that information as to what was going on. So we found out that they had it just about under control, and by that night they did have it down.